Thank you all for joining us this morning. As I'm sure you just heard, this session is being recorded and we will upload this to our YouTube channel for those who are unable to attend today. You're welcome to turn off your video if you don't want to be in the recording. And like I said, thanks for joining us. My name is Lindsay Law. I'm the Engagement and Services Manager here at ALTEC at the University of Colorado Boulder, and my pronouns are she, her. This is an ALTEC faculty workshop. ALTEC provides a variety of programs, resources, and support to faculty teaching languages, as well as students learning languages. Today's workshop is specialized language instruction, curricular, and career focused, and is presented by Dr. Mary Long and Dr. Lizz Huntley. Mary is a teaching professor and the director of Spanish for the Professions program in the Spanish and Portuguese Department at CU Boulder. And Liz is an instructor of Arabic and linguistics and the coordinator for the linguistics minor at UC Denver. We thank them for joining us today to share their knowledge on career readiness in the language classroom. We ask that you do remain muted while our hosts present and use the chat to ask questions. We'll have time at the end to discuss. And with that, I will turn it over to our presenters.
Okay, all right. So this at this point is actually just a reiteration of Lindsay's kind introduction. There you go. And then the general outline that Mary and I had talked about was we were going to do this kind of chronologically working through language programs. So I teach beginning Arabic as well as linguistics at UC Denver. And I'm going to be talking about integrating career readiness principles into the lower division classes, what that looks like when you don't necessarily have high level language capabilities. What can you do to bring these things together? And then we'll continue into the upper division courses with Mary. And then, of course, there'll be time at the end for a question and answer. All right, so part one. Integrating career readiness principles into the lower division courses. So what is career readiness? I've got here two definitions. One is from the National Association of Colleges and Employers, the attainment and demonstration of competencies which broadly prepare graduates for a successful transition into the workplace. And then from the College of Liberal Arts at the University of Minnesota, they frame it in terms of core career competencies, and they say that it offers a competitive advantage for students in today's uncertain and dynamic economy. Career readiness is therefore learning to articulate your competencies as well as being able to translate them into the language of employers and other stakeholders. Okay, so I'm going to highlight a couple of examples of what career readiness principles look like from the University of Minnesota and the College of Liberal Arts. And that's because they have invested an insane amount of money into developing core career competency principles for their liberal arts program to try to help students understand what kind of jobs are they being prepared for, as well as I think to fight for the liberal arts and say, no, the skills that we get here are extremely useful. They're desirable. Employers want them. Let's show you what you have so that you can show them to the world. So I'm going to first play this introductory video that's geared at students. And as I show it to you guys, I want you to put yourselves back into the shoes of your students. What were they thinking about when they had to pick their major or their classes? Okay. I wonder if I share a new tab, am I going to have to reshare the sound?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll do a stop share. I will do a new share. Chrome tab, career readiness, share tab audio. Okay, so you can see here's their glitzy, flashy website, their expensive video. What do students think?
When someone asks you about your career, how do you feel? Are you feeling the pressure or getting inspired? In a world that is changing at a rate that conventional careers and paths to success seem ridiculously outdated, how do you find a career path, let alone succeed in one? How do you prepare yourself for a job market that's moving so fast that you feel you're running just to stand still? And how do you prepare for a career during your experience in college? Well, we've got some good news for you. CLA has created a handy structure we call the 10 core career competencies. These strengths will guide you to learn and unlearn, to embrace ancient knowledge and apply it to modern problems, to unravel the mistakes of the past, and to move the world. And perhaps most importantly, to help you live a life richer in personal meaning, and even to be happier while doing it all. 10 areas of expertise that help you carve out a career path like you've known all along. 10 proficiencies that help you stand out from the crowd and rise to the top. And not only that, these areas of knowledge and experience are the weft and weave of your time at CLA. The moment you roll into CLA, you'll be focusing on career readiness through the acquisition of core career competencies. They represent the essence of a liberal arts education. They're the superstructure for building your own mental skyscraper and your elevator to the top. They are the abilities that are perfectly aligned with what you learn in liberal arts, but won't always be able to articulate without a lot of trial and error and a few decades of experience. So, like a Silicon Valley incubator, launching startups with a head start, CLA has created structures that help you get an edge out there. These 10 structures are within your major and beyond, because organizations are looking for competencies and fresh perspectives, not just degrees. It's one thing to talk about these 10 core career competencies. We recommend you experience them. To this end, we've created some exciting videos and tools for you to better grasp the concepts and also to track and articulate your progress and growing proficiencies. So delve in, check out the videos and explore the tools that help you self-assess, record your growth, as well as prepare for your interviews and data-driven stories that unlock your potential and open up doors. So let's forge ahead and get back to those career dreams.
Okay, so yeah, the idea is students are coming in, they don't really know what they're going to be studying, they don't really know what they want to do, and the whole point of career readiness within this context is let's show them, hey, you can take the classes that you like and you can develop skills that employers are going to be looking for. So what transferable skills does your education provide you? As you saw from the video, that was framed in terms of the liberal arts, but I think a lot of what we do in world languages is directly applicable from the general liberal arts education. So here are the 10 core career competencies that the University of Minnesota has outlined. They overlap to a large extent, but are framed slightly different from the ones that NACE, the National Association of Colleges and Employers, uses. But as you take a look around here, looking at the competencies, our students are engaging in these things all the time in our classes. And as I was familiarizing myself with these, I was like, well, yeah, my students are absolutely gaining proficiency in oral and written communication skills, and they're absolutely doing teamwork and leadership. Like everything that we do is group work and solving problems together. It is absolutely engaging diversity and active citizenship and community engagement. We're teaching them how to be global citizens and move throughout the world and move beyond their comfort zone. And so I was reading these and I was like, yes, my students are doing these all the time. How can I show them they're doing this? So the pipeline in a nutshell, as I see it, is that from the instructor's perspective, I'm going to go through and I'm going to look at these skills and I'm going to say, how does my class cultivate these highly desirable skills that students are going to show off as they move into the workplace? From the student's perspective, their job is to then both demonstrate that they have these skills as well as understand how to articulate them. It's not enough for them to go into my classroom and be doing these activities and developing the skills if they don't have the awareness of what they're doing. And of course, we do this all the time as language teachers, right? We're always doing this meta-linguistic awareness raising. Hey, did you realize when you form this sentence, you were using these structures? We're really good at doing this. And so now we're just applying those teaching techniques into raising their awareness of, did you know when you're doing this, you're gaining competency in digital literacy, for example. And then what that does is that helps students be able to, for better or for worse, sell themselves in a more successful way when they go onto the job market, so that employers can find those qualified students that have these desirable skills that they're looking for. It's not enough for a student to just move through the class and say, okay, I have, Spanish proficiency, but rather like I have Spanish proficiency, and that's also given me the ability to improve my oral and written communication skills, to demonstrate like active citizenship and community engagement. I'm very much engaged in applied problem solving. Language is all about looking at the data, finding the patterns, trying to figure out, okay, what's the next step to move forward, monitoring those outcomes. I didn't seem to be able to order my sandwich. Let me try again. These competencies are fundamental to what we're doing, even from the very beginning. Okay, so why did I get interested in this? I'm on the very opposite end of where Mary is. Mary has been involved in this for many, many years now. She's published, she's written, she's engaged with these professional organizations. I'm just starting to understand what career competency looks like. I got my master's and I taught for a while. I saw that glass ceiling. So I went back, I got my PhD, and now I'm starting off in my second year of teaching. And I'm realizing that the new glass ceiling is actually enrollments. So the conundrum, I hear this over and over again from my students. They'll be like, your class is my favorite class, or this is my fun class. I'm only studying, business or computer science or whatever to get a job. And there seems to be, I hear that over and over again from my students that like, they like my classes. I'm sure they like your classes, but they don't see those classes as connecting them to getting a job. And that's not just at my institution. You can see these are the world language enrollments from the 2020 Modern Language Association reports. Change down the line in the negative percents. Enrollments are dropping all over the place. So I was like, what do I do about this? How do I show my students like my classes, they're not just fun, but they're also helpful for you? I saw that Carla, which is one of the National Language Resource Centers at the University of Minnesota, they were offering a summer institute called Integrating Career Readiness into Language Programs. So I signed up for that class, I took it. A lot of what I'm talking about today comes directly from that course, as well as from the instructor, Dr. Sarah Mack. And so I did this for two reasons. One, a little bit of self-interest, job security. As I said, like enrollments are dropping. How do I make sure that I keep getting, students in the door, staying with me? I want them to see that my classes are relevant. They're not just fun. My classes can help them get a job. They're not just a hobby, because fun and hobby will have them be with me for 1 year, but a path to a career that they actually enjoy, that'll have them going all the way through to the end of the program, to what Mary's going to be talking about today. My second motivation was really mission driven, because a lot of the career readiness from this perspective, as I said, is about not only showing students why our classes are relevant, but also helping them to articulate, hey, employer, like, look at these skills that I have. When I get that question that says, tell me about a time that you had to engage in a project that involved teamwork and something failed. How did you work around that? We do interactive projects all the time in our class. We're going to give them plenty of good material to show off how they successfully built these skills so that they leave their undergraduate education and they're ready to show them off. So I wanted my students to be able to advocate for themselves so that they can get their foot in the door, because they don't come from a brand name institution that has name recognition right off the bat. But I want them to be competitive. I want them to be in the workforce. I want them to get the best jobs possible. So that's kind of the two-pronged approach for why I feel really excited about this prospect of integrating these into the beginning programs. So what does this look like in my classes? I've been working on implementing career readiness integration in all of my classes. So I'm working on linguistics right now. That's actually more fully fleshed out. I'm hoping to implement Arabic next semester. But basically, my goal, as I said, in general, is to raise awareness for my students. Look, what we're doing is useful and it's helpful. It's not just fun, it's not just a hobby, but it's actually going to be really important. You know, there's what, like 300,000 business majors that graduate every year. Adding a language on top of that is going to give you a competitive advantage. So because I don't have all the time in the world, neither do any of you, what I did was I looked at those 10 competencies. I picked out, in this case, I think it was 4 of them that I was like, yes, my class directly relates to this. And I have a little page open up, and every time that we do an activity, I say, this activity feeds into that competency. Actually, not unlike what you and I were just talking about with tracking business expenses or merit review criteria throughout the year. Anyway, to say that you don't have to build this all at once, but you can slowly work on this over time. Then with students, I try to do that meta awareness raising as we go along. This activity that you've done right here, this goes into your applied problem solving. This example shows how you are gaining the ability to look at a problem, apply your critical reasoning to it, and then solve it and move on. I've also developed a reflective mid-semester assignment that asks students to familiarize themselves with the University of Minnesota videos that I showed you guys. I say pick out a couple that are related to this class and pick out a couple that are just interesting to you, and then spend some time watching the videos, reflecting on how they might relate to your own career interests, and then how something in this class might help you towards developing that competency. I've also partnered with our Career Center, which has been really awesome, actually. Turns out they, like everyone else, are competing. Come on, students, get in our door. We really want to help you. So they're eager to partner with instructors and professors to say, like, let's work with your students. Let's show them, yes, what you're doing in this class is helpful, and I can tell you why. So we're going to do our first in-class guidance activity, actually for my linguistics class on Tuesday. And so I've done the assignment. I can show you, if there's time at the end, I can show you guys the examples of the assignments here and my little list of what we're doing in Arabic and how it targets the competencies. And then the goal is at the end, they're going to have a career-oriented profile, either with Handshake, which is the campus internal job search website. It's like a campus version of LinkedIn, or with LinkedIn. And an example assignment at the end would be create a profile based off of the competencies that you've gained in our class. Because I would love it if, they fill this out, they say, I've gotten these skills, and then, maybe next semester they get pinged by somebody who says, hey, I see you've developed this ability to, engage in active citizenship. This is something that I think would make you a good fit for this job. If I kind of help them see you actually got a job offer based off of this, my goal and my hope is that will bring more students back into my door, because they're like, oh, this class isn't just fun. This class is helping me gain readiness for the workforce. So that's all I have. I'm going to pass it on to Mary now, who will talk about what does this look like in the upper level classes. I'll let you switch the times.
If somebody can help me with
I
that,
gotcha.
because I'm not familiar with
Absolutely.
Max. Thank you, that was great. Yeah. All right, thank you, everybody, and thank you, Liz, for that great lead up. So impressed with everything you've done, starting from zero. It's always a little bit difficult to be asked to start thinking about something that's not what we've learned in graduate school. But you've really articulated really well those values that we're all looking at. So I'm looking now into how do you move into the upper division and maybe start getting more specialized in and having specific courses. And I want to frame it again with another set of ways that show how languages really are important for students in the world and for jobs. So it's important as you move into the upper division ones that is not either or. And you have colleagues that are doing research, and particularly on the Boulder campus and then the Denver campus too, but the Boulder campus with all of our different departments and the research agendas. All of that is part of this. The courses that we're talking about create connections between what they're learning in all their courses in their language and to the world in a slightly more explicit way, as you were saying. This ties to the idea of these 4 core categories, although I would add a 5th. So this is presented by, this is like about 10 years old now, but people were really working on this with ACTFL and this organization of 21st century needs. And we have global awareness, we have financial, economic, business, and entrepreneurial, we have civic literacy, we have health literacy, and of course, environment would be in there too. And of course, global awareness is everything that we do, obviously. And then it's usefully tied to the modes of communication that students are learning. They need to be able to engage on all these different levels around these topics. And this is what every student leaving the university needs. So sometimes it's all about, oh, well, the language, we need to get all these students into the language courses and the humanities, what's their value? But the other message to be giving is, if you're coming out with only statistical analysis of scientific data and not considering how your great discovery can't be communicated very well if you don't understand people, if you don't understand building trust, if you don't understand different registers, all of that research is going to be useful for your publications, but did you want to improve the world? And that is part of the communication piece. And particularly for environmental issues, we're looking at global needs of communication and cooperation. And that's all about cross-cultural communication and intercultural skills. So we're simultaneously, as we look at this, looking at pragmatic goals of increasing enrollments, maintaining viabilities of programs as we play the numbers game of having majors. How do we move them toward dual majors, dual degrees? But the reason we're doing this is also because this is the truth of the message that our students need to hear. People will always say, I've been to, on my years, 1 million of business conferences where people say, yeah, but everybody speaks English. So that's fine, the communication piece, but the language piece takes too long and they need those hard skills. And it's like, fine, yes, everybody speaks English, but when you're in a multinational business meeting, everybody speaks English and something or multiple something else's. Do you want to be the only one in the room who doesn't have that flexibility and ability? And that is an increasingly important consideration for engagement of our students and competitivity, not just internationally, but within the United States. And also helping students who bring that in from their heritage backgrounds to value it and be able to articulate it. So this button is a little squirrely for me. All right, so we're looking at, I'm going to kind of focus on, well, first of all, you need to develop the upper division course, but then with the idea to the future that we have structures within the institution to build up to a badge, to a certificate, to a minor, and eventually to a major. The Spanish for Professions major was started in 1973, and it has grown. It started out small. It was primarily business. Then in the mid-2000s, we were able to broaden it. It's had its ups and downs with enrollments because of the ups and downs of language study in the United States that are not 100% related to we're not offering what students want. You can be offering everything that is interesting, but if there's an isolationist moment in the historical flow of our country, sometimes interest in language drops, but we should just keep giving the message without getting discouraged. And we can build numbers by retooling and helping people to connect. So what does a class, just this basic structure of an upper division class, look like, no matter what business domain professional domain that you're going to do. So this could be business, this could be environmental, this could be medical, this could be diplomatic, this could be any professional, psychology, any professional domain that you want to make very specific. Law, you're going to have 3 axes, which is the language piece tailored to the needs of the specific expression within that field. You're going to have to acquire, in order to share with students, professional domain content. And the big piece is connecting all of this through, first of all, the level of intercultural competency that, yes, you could teach that in English, and many departments are teaching things about cross-cultural communication, international communication in English, definitely. But those principles, and then tied into, for this particular domain and this particular culture, what are on one level very pragmatic things like business gifts, what's acceptable. In this country, never give white flowers. In that country, don't you give a knife as a gift. Those are fun things to talk about. You can get those out of books that are like Doing Business In or Being a Sensitive Traveler. More importantly, for this part of the understanding of the cultural pieces is, what's the history of the understanding of health? What's the history of the understanding of commerce? What's the history of the understanding of the environment? And how is that feeding into the values that come to play when the stakeholders come together to make decisions in this particular setting related to getting something done, whether that's a business deal, whether that's a new dam or not a new dam, because they've decided a dam is not the thing to do. So I'm going to step back now. You can't just dive into the class. You have to decide, well, for my department, for my language field and the regions that I study, what professional domain should I choose? Don't just go with, oh, well, business, everybody always wants business, or, oh, we have a big medical program, so obviously we just have to do that. Those are important considerations, because you do want to be responding and offering things that have that link in the professional programs on your campus. You don't want to start offering some really great thing that nobody is studying on your campus at all for the professional domain skills. But you also want to really understand what's the most pertinent domain in the cultures and language that you study, what's represented. So Spanish has all these different countries. It has a large population in the United States, and it touches a lot of different fields. But you'll see that we don't particularly offer Spanish for diplomacy. And that has a little bit to do with looking and balancing the courses that I saw that would do the links of both the needs for international and national, the histories around environment and health and politics tied to business. But that might not be the case if you're teaching an Asian language with a different history. If you're looking at French in Africa, there may be different focuses that you want to look at, or you may want to give a broader little bit of a bunch of different angles if you're starting with one course. So you make that decision based on your experience, knowledge of your region, of your language, in dialogue with the people in your department. And I'm not going to get into right now what about the colleagues who think this is a really bad idea. If you're chair and you are willing to put effort into it, it's worth it. And other people, it's just a matter of helping them to see how you don't have to change in order to enrich. This course will be a link. This course will enhance what you're doing, and you'll see it eventually and then not worry about it, because it takes some people a while to come on board with it. But then you go to the principle. I'm not going to get into the principles of backwards doing a needs analysis, which is both what does your campus need, what do your students need, but also then if you're in the profession, what do you need to be able to do in this language? It's not always right. For example, lawyers in the US do not need to be able to write in Spanish. They need to be able to dialogue at multiple levels of register in Spanish, but they don't necessarily need to ever be able to write something if they're working in the courtroom in the United States. If they're going to be an international business, they want to be able to read legal documents accurately. So this, oh, we always have to write is not necessarily going to be true for every domain. And then there's the principles of backward design. Where do I want them to go? And then let me think the class through that. And we have this piece today of career readiness. So in more pragmatic terms, if you look at a class component, think of the final class project that you're aiming for, and then circle your activities through those three axes, building and building and building. You can't do everything all the time. Sometimes you're doing a day that's let's understand cultural history or contemporary context for this field by reading newspaper articles or looking at current events or going to study the business curriculum or the health curriculum or the health insurance offerings in different countries, etc. And then another day might be, let's write a business letter, or let's create a dialogue and interview someone for a medical setting, etc. But they're all building toward this final project. So that's very vague and hard to imagine. So let me just give you some quick examples. Oops, sorry that I skipped ahead. So for example, Spanish for business, the final project is a business plan. Spanish for health professions, a public health presentation of some sort, because we have a very strong public health program, but we have pre-med, but we don't actually have students who are in the class who can actually diagnose. So saying, oh, my goal for this class is to finish with a diagnostic dialogue, they don't quite yet have all that medical knowledge to do that, but where you do Spanish or medical in a medical school, you would have a different setting. But here they have a lot of training in public health. So then how am I going to go to the public and give a public health message like at a public library or in a community setting? Spanish for environmental studies and sustainable development. Many of the students are coming from the sciences. They have some version of a poster session where they present their research. So this is a useful way to be able to document and then discuss with people who come up. We have the media class. We look at pertinent media products. Had translation and interpretation. The theories that we do are very applied, and then we're putting together a portfolio. In the olden days, this was a paper portfolio full of samples of your translations. Nowadays, we're actually doing online portfolios in which every single thing, and this goes for classes that aren't professions related. If you have an essay, if you do a digital narratives class, every single final project can be an example to use as a conversation piece in a professional online portfolio, which isn't the thing you show in the first part of the job interview, but I've had many employers, they did the first interview, they called me, I said, did they show you their portfolio? And they said, yes, I really enjoyed going through that. Students have told me in the second interview, using my portfolio to walk through and explain these different angles, it's giving them objects. And so we also then in the translation class built in have a career research paper where it doesn't have to be, how am I going to use my language anywhere? It's just, what is your real goal globally for what you think you want to do, or if you don't have any idea, pick one out of the air. And there's steps we go through for them to do career planning, some very basic career planning, and there we partner with career services. You combine that from one semester with the portfolio for the next, and they're very much informed now at their advanced level of proficiency into how to look for jobs that value this, and then how to show the things that Liz was saying about how this plays in with these very specific products that they can share. And I'm getting close to the end of my part. So I am also on our campus. Other departments have been working on this for a long, long time too. French and Italian has a long history. And so does German and Slavic languages and literatures. I know that other programs do too, but I just pulled a couple off because I wanted to show, here's a model for Russian where it's not just one domain, it's all together. and helping people look at different angles and not necessarily, this is where it's interesting to look like, don't make assumptions about, oh, it's always just business. Diplomacy and politics might be the pertinent need that North American students graduating from a North American institution to go into international relations for Russia may be finding that they need to understand politics, diplomacy, and first, and the business skills come and go because of the relationships between countries that are beyond our control. Or for example, looking at science and engineering, there's a very, very long tradition and great models both on our own campus and nationally for connecting language study with science and engineering, and very successful careers and books written about it with people who did dual degrees with engineering and a language culture approach. So this is just so you can have a few ideas to start thinking for your own focus that you're interested to do. Now, how do you do this as an individual faculty member who's being asked to take on something that you didn't study in school? And maybe we all kind of have an understanding of what it's like to be a patient for health, or we have to do our taxes and sort of understand if maybe H&R Block did the right thing. So we all do kind of touch, even though we'll say, I know nothing about business. I know nothing about medicine. I know nothing about law. Well, that's not really true. You know about it from the subject engaged and what frustrations of communications you might have found. So that's a place to link into and then expand. All of these fields have vast amounts of research going on, and all of these fields have people working in their communities, in their language, internationally. One of the realities is that often the academic professionals in other countries and the business professionals may actually be publishing in English. So you can't always find in-depth scholarly articles in the language that represent as much of the knowledge that's being produced because they're being asked to publish in English. But that in and of itself is a whole interesting conversation. So you start getting curious, you work with the colleagues and the allies that you have in your department, and if your chair's not up for it and nobody's willing to give you any support or any release time, you have to do a serious question of like, okay, well then there's only so many hours in a day. If we want to do this, then support needs to be provided. But also don't think that you have to invent the wheel. This is not 1973. There is a lot of publication. This is going on for 35 years in different venues, and those databases still exist. But at the end of my talk, there's a list of more recent things, and the bibliographies of those recent things will take you to the past. There is actually quite a bit of funding for professional development. If you look for it, it's not huge pots, but if you're a teaching faculty and you use your $600 a year to go to conferences and you're strategic, that's a drop in the bucket. There are other funds that we're able to on our campus to apply for, and I'm sure you have found some pockets of money. There are national centers that offer money. There are larger scholarships and Title VI grants. There's all sorts of directions you can go. So there is money, but you can also ask for time. Those are the two things that you need. And identifying potential partners and services on your campus. So go to meetings, go to talks. Don't try and go from department at the top to department at the top. Start with individuals who are working on things and asking questions that are interesting to you. Reach out to them, go to have coffee with them, build into it, and then share interests. And then just talking to each other and telling your students about each other gets you informed. And that moves into places of, oh, okay, well, we're doing this certificate. We should count your classes in our certificate. And that's how we got the public health certificate to count Spanish for health as one of the required things. And then that moves forward to your goal for enrollments. Okay, so I'm going to move toward finishing up here. So in the category of resources, there are organizations that have a wonderfully giving and sharing community. Recently, in the last 3 years, ACTFul, people got together and finally got enough signatures to create the language for specific purposes special interest group at ACTFul. And it represents the body of people. There are veterans who've been in it for 30 years with the newest people who are coming in now of all levels. And a lot of people go to ACTFul every year. It's a very productive conference to go to. So definitely knowing about this and joining this and then getting the emails from it is very useful. Out of the University of Florida, there's a woman, Mary Risner, who created the network of business language educators, which is subsequently morphed more to be the network of language for specific purposes educators. And if you go to that website, and then you sign up for the newsletter that she puts out, there are links to everything, K-12, university, what's going on in the US, what's going on internationally, podcasts, lectures, materials, funding sources. It's a wonderful, wonderful resource. And then every 2 years, there's the International Symposium on Languages for Specific Purposes / Cyber Business Language Conference. You can go and see an example of the last one, and the next one's in 2026. And you should reach out to that previous conference people and ask them to get on the list for the new one, because that's kind of how we communicate. And the Cyber Center for International Business Education Research, there are 18 of these nationally. They're federally funded. They're under the umbrella of Title VI fundings, and we have one on the Denver campus. And they do a lot, and they have faculty development activities and things. And I didn't, unfortunately, put their link on here, but I can update it before we share them. And for example, they're doing a faculty trip to Shanghai and Singapore and the Philippines in the Christmas break that visits businesses and understands professional settings. So if that's pertinent to anyone who's listening in the future, reach out. You can reach out to me and I can forward that information to you. And then finally, there's a long history now of publications, and there's some, oops, what happened?
Uh-oh.
They just turned off the power, I think.
Oh, no. I'm still, looks like Zoom is still connected. I think you're okay.
Okay. Okay. So there's a lot of publications. There's this journal. From here. Okay, I won't try. So there's a journal, and even again, because it's called Global Business Languages, this comes out of the original fundings that were coming out were specifically for business, but now it's really broadened beyond that. So you'll find articles related to all sorts of professional settings, not just business. There's 3 major books that have come out of the cyber sequence that I've listed here. The Darcy Lear book for the Integrating Career Preparation into Language Courses for Lower Division and Upper Division is a short little book that's got like handouts that you can use to help students walk through how do I articulate an elevator pitch? How do I put an example on my resume that shows my language skills, but not just I'm fluent in Spanish, but I volunteered with a soccer team and used Spanish this way, and I'm interested in working with youth development. And then there's a number of other books, and I chose these because they deal with all the different languages. They're not just Spanish specific. And like I said, if you go to any of these sources and you look at them, they're great. Then if you also go to the works cited in them, it will be the path into the whole world of publications about this. And that's all for today. Thank you.
Okay. Find the right window here. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. Let's see.
Chats, it looks like.
Yes. One of those, as we know from Esther, video may have frozen. Sorry for the technical glitch. There is construction going on in this building. So I think we lost everyone for a second, but hopefully you all made it back. And then the second link there, I stuck a couple of things in the chat for you all. The first link is just subscribe to ALTEC. If you click that button, you can sign up for our newsletter and follow our content so you know when more things like this are coming up. The second link is just to our faculty learning page. You can see that same sort of information there. I know we've got one other great faculty workshop coming up in November. And the third link there is just a feedback link. If you have a moment, we'd really appreciate your feedback on this workshop today or anything else you might want to talk to us about. Before we leave, do we have questions for the presenters? Yes.
I'd like to know if we can get a copy of the presentation.
Yes, absolutely. The question was, can we get a copy of the presentation? I will send out links to the presentations and some additional information in a follow-up email.
Thank you.
Got a thank you from Karen for a wonderfully informative presentation. Okay.
I'm curious, the languages and levels that are represented of the Zoom attendees, because I talked a little bit about what you guys are teaching, but
Yeah. Question from Liz with our Zoom attendees who is curious about what languages are represented.
and the levels that you teach.
And the levels that you teach.
And then there's another question.
Yeah.
I see Spanish, I see French,
Italian.
Italian.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And yeah, Spanish, French, Italian, and all levels.
Yeah.
Mhm.
All levels.
And Olga, she has a question.
Yeah.
So, are we muting them?
There she is. Hi, Olga.
Hi. Yes, I have a question. I don't know if I'm very formalized, but as I was, so there is this sort of cut between the lower level and the upper level. And our first presenter was showing how to put these career goals in just from the very beginning of our careers. So I am teaching currently a course that is right in between the lower division and the upper division. It's it is end of second year class. And I still feel like, so when you were talking about, Mary, you were talking about the need assessment and, the backward design and how to actually be more specific about a certain, certain specific goals in the specialist language. I'm still in the generic type of teaching. So for me, it's very hard to find the right balance between, exposing students to many different, needs. So each student has, in my classes has their own needs because they come from different backgrounds, like or they have different majors or they have different interests. So like the need assessment, when you talk about need assessment, very often we have classes where, the needs are very different. So like, for me, it's always I think, okay, how do I go about it? Like, how do I find the right balance between, like just giving a generic, like, our classes, the people do all sorts of different studies. So it's a little bit complex for me to do this need assessment, and focus in on a specific project. So I just
Yes. Thank you. I really, really appreciate that. And I think that's a super important point. And that transition class is exactly what you're saying. And so by the needs, I hesitated to even put needs assessment into my talk because in the world of curricular design and things, the full-on needs assessment is quite time consuming and it takes years. And that's not the reality necessarily of our classroom things. And so, but for the scenario that you're describing, I would look at, okay, but there's that screen that's coming out of our field of these global competencies areas. And in a course say, look, I look at my syllabi because I don't have only students who do business and Spanish for business or only students who do medical, because it counts for the minor. We have people coming from all over. I look at my specific class list and I kind of make a little list of what are the different areas represented. And then for me, for that level, it would be, let me get this in the language. There are certain basic intercultural communication principles that are going to go across everything. Like my mother-in-law, when I got to Mexico, was like, Mary, why don't Americans greet? Like the whole need for greeting. So that's a thing. But then you can say, well, in this class, we have people from engineering, we have people from business, we have people from environmental design, we have people pre-med students. Those are all domains. And then you don't have to dive in and become an expert in every one of those fields, but you can unify and then even have as a project, go out and find each of you, and you could do it. Each of you go out and find something related to your major in the language. That's one angle, and have them present to each other. But at a 2000 level, that's a little hard. Or you could just say, look, we're going to look at greetings across the 4 different domains here, or one communication issue related to these. And yeah, some of you know about business, some of you know about environmental design, but in the world, those things connect, and play with that. So it doesn't have to be that you're giving everybody the deepness of everything they need or exhausting yourself trying to become an expert across all those things. Just sort of think into letting it, that's for me where the intercultural competency piece and the first levels of professional engagement can then link everything. I hope that's helpful.
Yeah.
And I don't know.
Yeah, no, it's very helpful. It's, it's things that are in my head and they go around. So I also, in my classes, another thing that is more, like more broadly interdisciplinary, and something that you mentioned is to also focus precisely on the soft skills, how, that are transferable from one discipline to the other. So as you were saying, how do we greet, or whatever it is the problem, so that if you, it's more like the humanistic and the ethical perspective that is sort of interdisciplinary rather than being subject specific, so that's what I'm trying to do. But it's my first time teaching this particular class on sustainability at this level, so I don't know how it will come up, but thank you so much for all the suggestions, and it was very helpful what you said. Yes, thank you.
I'm so glad. Yes, and we can talk more always.
And I had a few thoughts too. Olga. Can you remind me of what your language context is?
Italian.
Italian, and then for sustainability?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I was thinking in terms of like, yeah, at that level, at my beginner Arabic class students, like their language skills are very low. So I'm more of just kind of showing them, hey, these are the transferable skills you get. But I think at the intermediate level, you could also just maybe introduce, like, kind of as Mary was saying, like general professional, she was talking about general professional principles. I'm thinking general professional artifacts or documents. So maybe you have them like read through examples of job postings in Italian related to sustainability. And as Mary said, maybe they have to go out and look for a job posting in Italian related to their professional interest. Or maybe you have them reproduce their CVs, but in Italian, for example. So I think you could play around with, job listings, CVs. They can either be reading them or they can be interpreting them. Maybe it's like, hey, here's a job posting. Here's an example of 4 different CVs. Your job is to try to figure out who you want to hire and why, so that they're engaging with the professional language, even if it's not necessarily hyper specified to their individual areas of interest at the end of the day.
Yeah. I'm thinking at their level, because they are still, some of them are freshmen or not freshmen, no, sorry, they are juniors, and but I was thinking also, instead of job posting, like even looking for internships for, to work in some of these environmental organizations, or, sustainability projects that, they always look for volunteers, or, so that's also, instead of having the step, the end goal is to find a job, right? But, there are some intermediate activities that lead to then find a job. So yeah, thank you very much for your suggestions.
And for everybody that listening and interested in sustainability issues, the UN publishes all their stuff in all the languages. And so if it's an easy go-to for any level of looking for the principles presented in your language, and that kind of object-oriented thing. And then it expands out from there. And there's also a lot of publications about like stakeholder participation in water planning, and they'll be in multiple languages because it's a UN published document, and those are free. So that's an excellent resource. And that's the kind of thing of sharing, and like you don't have to say, well, business stuff, but how do I warp it to sustainability or environmental? There is a lot out there. And that's what's cool about, overwhelming, but also cool about the internet. And then having these conversations so that people can share. So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. I think we are about at time. Any other questions before we wrap it up today? Okay. Well, thank you all once again for joining us today.
Thank you.